first edition of the Nahar Jeeto Bookathon presented in association with the Raisoni Foundation. In this session, we shall delve into the intricacies of the book GST Appeals, Appellate Procedures by Dr. Sanjiv Agarwal. This book on appeals under the GST regime is one of the most comprehensive commentaries on law, rules, and procedural aspects of appeals and appellate mechanisms under the goods and services tax laws. Appeals are very important in any law, and more specifically in taxation laws. This book is aimed to be a guide for professionals and taxpayers alike, and it also provides legal commentary on statutory provisions, on appeals and litigations that are supported by case laws. Our speaker for today, who is also the author of this book, Dr. Sanjiv Agarwal, is an MCom, FCA, FCS, ACIS, and a Doctor of Literature, is aged 64 and is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in India and a fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, besides being an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administration in London. He holds a postgraduate degree in Accountancy and Business Statistics from the University of Rajasthan in Jaipur, and he's been awarded a PhD for his publication, A Conceptual Approach to Corporate Governance, Preparation for the Global Interface, from R.A. Poddar Institute of Management, University of Rajasthan in Jaipur. He also holds a diploma in corporate governance from the ICSI. He's recently been conferred with a doctorate in literature from the Commonwealth Vocational University from the Kingdom of Tonga, and he's also a qualified insolvency professional registered with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. He's also registered on the panel of independent directors maintained by the IICI Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Our moderator for this session, Ms. Neha Somani, also comes from the world of CAs. She holds a BCom, FCA, and a PhD and is a chartered accountant with over a decade of professional expertise. As a fellow member of the ICAI and a partner at Agarwal Sanjeev and Company since 2015, she specializes in indirect taxes including GST, service tax, and customs. Ms. Somani is also recognized for her expertise in tax advisory, adjudication, and GST audits, and has co-authored several GST-related books. She's also registered with the IICI, which is the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, as an independent director. So that's all from me. I'd now like to hand over the session to our moderator.
So today we are with Dr. Sanjiv Agarwal to talk about his book on GST appeals and appellate procedures. Dr. Sanjiv Agarwal, sir, has 4 decades of professional experience as a practicing chartered accountant with vast exposure in indirect taxation. He has so far authored more than 40 books on various professional subjects, including indirect tax and GST. He is a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and Institute of Company Secretaries of India, besides being an associate member of Institute of Chartered Secretaries in Administration, London, UK. He is also a qualified insolvency professional registered with Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. He is also on the panel of independent directors. So we are here to promote his book on GST appeals and appellate procedures. It's one of the comprehensive commentary on law, rules, and procedural aspects of appeals and appellate mechanism under GST laws. Appeals are very important in any law, and particularly in this type of taxation system. So let's not waste time and let's directly talk to the author himself. Hello, sir. How are you?
Fine.
Let's start, sir. So, what inspired you to write the books, and particularly this book?
In fact, I've been writing from my childhood, and I used to write when I was in school. I did the magazine of my college, university, and then gradually I started writing books also. Articles, a lot of articles I wrote. I still write articles and on various professional subjects. And then it was in 1992 that I started writing books meant for professionals. The objective was that, if you like writing, you have passion for writing, then you write the books. And in my case, what actually happened is I was writing something which I practice. So this is the subject which I used to practice in my professional career, and so I decided that okay, let me write books. It would benefit me as a student of that subject. It would also benefit my fellow professional brothers and sisters who are into that line of activity. So this is how I started. And the journey of writing for indirect access, it was inspired by someone. There was a colleague called Raja Chalaya, who was a known economist, and he was my father's colleague. So he suggested me in 1980 that VAT and GS service check is going to be a very long-lasting subject in the Indian professional arena, and so I started writing, and service check was my first book which I wrote.
So, how do you hope it will impact readers' learning experience?
Any book, what author does, author basically he shares his knowledge, and when he shares his knowledge, he has to express himself. So when he expresses himself, then the experience comes in. So writing for any author, the knowledge of the author, the way he expresses himself, and during the process of that writing, if he's sharing his experience, which in my case is there, because what I write is what I do. That is the advantage, and that is how the book is going to help in professional career of everybody who uses the book. Because if you want to enter into appeals, if you want to file an appeal, if you want to handle the appeal, if you want to get the appeal adjudicated, you'll have to know what are the insights. So those insights are captured in this book.
What is the backbone of this book and how it can help readers professionally?
See, this is a book which, let me tell you the background, little background of the GST. GST is relatively a new law in our country. It's only 7 years old. So it completed 7 years on 30th of June. So, and prior to this law, prior to GST, we had arena of indirect access laws. There was a VAT law, there was service tax law, there was excise duty law. A lot of laws were there. So GST is a combination of 17 indirect access laws, both which were there in the center and in the state. So they all got merged into one act, which is now known as the Goods and Services Act. In various countries, it is called GST only. In some countries, it is called value added tax. So what happens is, this is a new law. The law is new, the rules are new, the procedures are new, and the people who are using it is also new. The taxpayers are also new to this GST law. So it is learning for everybody. Even the revenue officers are learning. It's new for them also. So, and we don't have any organized literature in the market. You'll find articles issued by the government, you will find some notifications, some circulars are there, you'll find certain books which are on different aspects of GST law. And GST is an ocean. The book which is being discussed today, that is the GST appeals and appellate procedures, that is the appeals and appellate procedures, is basically covering hardly 10% of the GST law. This book is only covering the appeals, and apart from appeals, there are assessments, there are adjudications, there are returns, there are registration, there are advance rulings, there is input tax credit, there is a how do you get the refund, all those things are there. So this is a book which is focused only on appeals. So that way, the book contains the entire gamut of GST appeals from A to Z. And as we progress further, we'll discuss more about this book.
What kind of research did you do for this book?
In fact, there is no research as such in this book. The research is the experience which I have gained over the years. I've been practicing indirect taxes since last 4 decades, and whatever I learned as a practitioner in the law, that is there in this book, and I've tried to get this book loaded with all those things which are required by a practicing professional in order to handle the issues of interpretation and explanations. Which is basically your experience is coming into it, the knowledge is coming into it. And how do you practically deal with that subject? That also one can find in it.
So, what new skills then you acquired during this process?
See, learning is a continuous process, and When you write a book, you have to read a lot. And when you read a lot, you learn how to interpret a particular provision or a particular item. For example, what is the difference between shall and may? What is the difference between and or? When you say something includes something, then what does that include mean? Then you will find certain definitions are inclusive, certain definitions are exclusive. So you need to know how to interpret a particular provision. That is very important. And when you interpret any law, not only tax law, but when you interpret any law, you will find that there are certain terms and there are certain doctrines of interpretation. Like for example, in this particular book, you will find that there is a chapter, a specific chapter on principles of interpretation. So in any interpretation, you find a definition. Definitions are there, the certain provisions are there, the manner in which you have to carry out certain activities is there. But how do you interpret that provision? But for example, there would be a definition of goods which say goods includes all movable goods and certain other things which are not goods, but they are considered deemed to be goods. So you need to know each and every item of that definition. And even a comma full stop makes a difference. So you need to interpret a particular thing in a particular manner. And when you interpret a thing, particularly in text law, you find that the interpretation is very specific. Sometimes you have to use the doctrine of liberal interpretation, and sometimes you have to follow strict interpretation. When some benefit is to be given to a stakeholder, you should be liberal in interpretation. When how that provision has to be implemented, if certain procedure is prescribed, then you have to follow a strict interpretation. What are the conditions for implementation of the conditions or for satisfaction of the conditions? You have to follow the principle of strict interpretation. Then another example I would give is that there's an intention behind the law. We call it legislative intention. What was the intention of the legislation or the law framers when they framed a particular provision? That has to be kept in the mind, because that is the backbone. That gives you the situation in which that provision will be applicable, and accordingly you have to interpret that provision in a particular manner. Another example is what happens. What do you do if a certain item is not there in the law? Where do you take the guidance from? So that is very difficult. So we have a principle of perimeteria. Perimeteria means that if you don't find a particular provision or a particular clause or particular definition in the law, then you borrow it from a similar law. In case of GST, if something is not defined in the law in the GST, then you borrow it from excise or customs or any other indirect law. So that is the concept of principle of perimeteria. So in this book, you'll find, any reader will find a chapter spanning over around 100 pages, which would, this book is of around 600 pages, and you will find in one of the chapters, which is on principles of interpretation, you'll find that each such term or such rule or such doctrine has been very well explained, and it is also supported by judicial pronouncements, like what Supreme Court said on that, what High Court said on that. So this is the USP of this book, because if somebody reads this book, he will not only know about the subject, he will also know about how to interpret a particular provision. So that is something which I have also learned, and whatever I learned during the course of my professional practice, I have tried to incorporate onto this interpretation of the idea.
It's all about interpretation.
Basically, it's about interpretation. It's a skill which any professional will have to upscale himself with. Because if you don't have the skills of interpretation, how will you handle the appeal? The law is there, anybody can read it, but simply reading it is not important. What is there between the lines in those provisions is more important, and how do you interpret it to the advantage of everyone? That is very important.
Were there any challenges in writing the book?
Yes, of course, there would be challenges whenever you do a project like this. There are bound to be challenges in that. See, the first challenge is of time. When you write a book, it is a time-consuming job. It's not an article that you can write in 2 hours or 3 hours. So it is an ongoing process which goes on for 4 to 6 months. In some cases, people will take 8 months, 10 months. Based on, since I have been writing books, so I know how to, what is the sequence, how can I manage the time. So time management is very important, which I do, number one. Number two, when you write the book, you have to break the targets. You have to break the target that this book, if this book is of 500 or 600 pages or it's contains 9 or 10 chapters, then what time I have to devote to each of these chapters, depending upon the importance, depending upon the content, and depending upon how deep you want to dive into that particular chapter. That is very important. Number one. Number two, apart from the time, when you write such a book, which is time consuming, it takes 3 to 6 months. You start on a particular date and you finish on a particular date. In between, since the law is also evolving today, the law changes, the rules change, the amendments take place, the notifications are issued, the circulars are issued, and on the top of it, every day you will find a new judicial pronouncement which settles the law in a particular way. Another month you will find another order of the Supreme Court or High Court which reverses the earlier order. So you have to strike a balance with, particularly with the judicial pronouncements, and you have to look at how do you take out the crux of that judgment. Judgment could be 200 pages, it could be 10 pages, it could be 50 pages. How do you take out how do you arrive at the ratio of that judgment is very important. For that you have to read. That is very important. And apart from the judicial pronouncements, you start your writing commentary, and during the course of writing that commentary, you find that chapter which I finished 10 days back has to be changed, has to be further amended because some new circular has come or new clarification. So these are the bigger challenges.
So how writing this book enhanced your own skills, be it in research or any other area?
When you do such projects, you learn. Every day you are learning. So when you learn, you of course, it's obvious that you are enhancing your skills. If your knowledge enhances, your skills enhance. If you whatever you read, even a judgment you are reading, one judgment you are reading every day, it is enhancing your skills in the sense that you are able to interpret what is going to happen next. Or if a similar case comes, how will I handle that? So enhancement is there, and you can't say that if you are reading and writing, your enhancement is not there. It will be there. And reading is the starting point of skill acquisition. Knowledge is never complete. Every day we are in such a profession that every day you have to read. And the way the laws are changing, the way the business requirements are changing, the way the demands of the client or the businessmen are changing, the professionals, particularly the young professionals who have recently entered into the profession or they are younger in practice, they have to learn a lot and they have to read a lot, because passing examination is different and writing and doing a practice is different. So practice, you have to always be on your toes.
So as I told you, he has authored more than 40 books in professional subjects. So sir, what new techniques did you employ in this book compared to your previous works?
See, earlier days it was all manual. When I started, I used to write by hand, and then somebody used to type, then somebody used to proofread, and then it was sent to publisher. Today, all these things are not there because we are living in an age where digital economy has taken over. So, similarly, in our profession also, a lot of things are available in soft. So, particularly whenever a new change comes, CBIC will, show it on its website. We'll have soft copies of all notifications. We have soft copies of all case laws, and there are softwares for judicial pronouncements. And for using those softwares which are there for cases, you can get text, you can get head notes, you can get a lot of research that which this case has been used in certain other cases, or where it was distinguished, whether it has been relied upon or followed. All those things are there. The search becomes easier. You can search by case, you can search by judge's name, you can search by court's name, you can search by subject, you can search by the statutory provision. You can search by the enactment. So all those changes are there. Because apart from this book, we also have a book on Supreme Court cases on GST. So whatever cases have been pronounced by Supreme Court in the GST, those are there in a particular book. But the gist of those cases are also available in this book on appeal if the subject matter of the judicial pronouncement was appeals. So while doing that also, you have to read the law, you have to read the case, and you have to interpret that particular provision, that particular case, that how it is going to be beneficial to the reader. And for that, you have to use various software which are available in the market.
In this process, how did you develop your own character to convey lessons or skills?
In fact, in this case, what is there? You have to find out how the book should address the requirements of the reader. So based on the requirements of the reader and based on your focus on what you want to convey to the audience, you have to design the book in such a manner that it is the one information or the one topic flows into the other. The sequence is maintained, and the reader is able to understand that what will be how he can derive knowledge from the book. Like for example, in this book we have 9 chapters, and we start from A and go up to Z. There will be a basic chapter on the overview of the GST, then the legal framework we have covered. The synopsis of the book is such, the character of the book is such that you can read the law, you can understand the law, you can interpret the law, and you can apply the content of the book in your daily professional life. That is how the book has been designed, and that is the main character of the book.
Are there any specific lessons you hope readers will take away from your book?
See, every writing is a lesson. The only thing is that how one takes benefit of the book, and the major benefit is in terms of acquiring the knowledge. When you acquire the knowledge, then only you apply the knowledge. So if you know everything about the appeals, then only you can handle the appeal. So it will the reader will be benefited in the sense that he will be able to inculcate the takeaways from the book and use those takeaways in his daily practice in handling the appeals for the clients. So the book becomes a tool for professing in whatever profession you are doing, so far as handling of appeals is concerned.
And how do experience of the characters reflect the world challenges and learning opportunities?
See, challenges we have discussed. This is the major challenge for any professional or any reader today is from where does he get the authentic knowledge? You have a lot of websites available today in the market. You have got a lot of articles. The problem comes where your interpretation becomes shaky. That is, supposing the law is there, you have to interpret it. And if the interpretation itself is not strong, then if you are using that interpretation, which is not backed by judicial pronouncements or not backed by research, then you are likely to stumble somewhere down the line. So, the content has to be genuine. The content has to be genuine. Apart from that, the case laws which you are providing to the reader, those should be authentic, and the ratio should be very clearly designed, arrived at. Those are the major challenges which we have taken care in the book. And the reader who reads this book will definitely be aided in the sense that he will be able to handle his professional assignments more effectively.
Okay. Now let's come to the plot and structure of the book. So tell us something about the plot and structure of the book, like how it supports the theme of the book.
As I told you, this book is a very focused book. It deals with only appeals and appeals, nothing else. Because if you look at the any tax law, and we're today talking of GST, things start when you file the returns. When you file the returns, or if you don't file the return, you get notices. When you get notice, then adjudication takes place, or assessments have to take place. The moment there is a dispute, or the moment there is a problem in the department or the revenue authorities accepting what you are claiming, the dispute arises. And to settle the dispute in any law, there is a provision for appeal. Appeal is a statutory right. It is not a fundamental right. It is a statutory right, and the statutory provisions of the law provide that you have a right to appeal which you can opt for. If you are opting for an appeal, then this book comes into play. But when you look at adjudication, the adjudication officer will issue an order. That order may be acceptable to you, may not be acceptable to you. If it is acceptable to you, one way is that you don't do anything, it is done. If you are not satisfied with the order, you are aggrieved on any ground, you have a right to appeal. If you don't appeal, then you have an option to accept what the order says. If you are opting for that option, fine, no appeal is required. But if you want to dispute and you want to litigate that issue for future references, or if the amount is so huge that you can't pay, so the only option left with you is to file an appeal. Then the appeal comes. So for adjudicate for the events which happen prior to filing of appeal, you have to do scrutiny, assessment, and adjudication, for which there is a separate item. When we talk of appeals, we only discuss how do you handle an order which has been received by you, which has been issued by or passed by a proper officer in GST. When you receive the order, and if you are not satisfied, you are aggrieved on any ground, you can file an appeal. So how do you file an appeal? When do you file an appeal? What is the manner or the time in which you can file the appeal? What should the appeal contain? How appeal has to be handled or what? How do you argue yourself before the appellate authorities? All those things are there in the book. And when I talk of appeal is again, a multifunctional activity. When I say that you can file an appeal, then you can file an appeal before a proper forum. And in GST also, we have 4 layered appellate forums. So if an order has been issued by the assessing officer, you can file an appeal before the first appellate authority. That is the appeals at the commissionerate level. That is the first appellate authority. Still, if that order is issued by the appellate authority and you are not satisfied, you can file an appeal before the tribunal. Okay. So when you file the appeal before the tribunal, if still tribunal issues an order and you are still aggrieved, you will go to High Court and then to Supreme Court. So these are the 4 layers of filing an appeal under the GST law. Now, when you file the appeal before the first appellate authority, again there is a procedure to be followed. Certain forms have to be filed. The appeal has to be filed in a particular manner and within a given time frame. What if you are not able to file the return in time? You have to apply for condonation of delay. Then the appeal is heard. You have to file your papers. You have to submit your documents. On what are the cases on which you are relying upon. Every detail is there in the book when you file for the purpose of filing the appeal. You file the appeal, but what happens? You have to be heard. Opportunity of hearing will be provided to you. How you should conduct yourself when the hearing takes place. Then the order is received, when the order is issued. How do you receive the order? How the order can be serviced? Everything is there. Then when you move to a second appeal stage, that is the appellate tribunal, which are yet to be set up in the country. The government of India has already appointed the president of the National Appellate Tribunal in the GST, which we call GST 80, GST Appellate Tribunal. The benches of Appellate Tribunal are in the process of being set up, and it's hoped that in the next 3 to 4 months, those benches of the Appellate Tribunal will be functional in the country. So once that is there in place, then the second appeals will also start. Today, what is happening? Because we don't have an appellate tribunal in place, people are going to high courts. Since they can't appeal in high court because high court is not the appellate authority. So what they are doing, for all important matters, they are filing writs. in the High Courts and Supreme Court. So this is what is going on. So when we file the appeal before the tribunal, then we have a chapter dedicated to appellate tribunal. Then we have a chapter on filing appeals to High Court and Supreme Court. And in GST, it's not that you can file the appeal. It is the revenue officer also who can file the appeal, because at times he may also be aggrieved in the interest of the revenue to protect the revenue interest. So the commissioner or the adjudicating officer can also file the appeal. So he is also one of the aggrieved persons. So, and the commissioner is also empowered to revise the order issued by the subordinate authority. So we have a chapter on revision of orders also. And then there are certain miscellaneous provisions. In the book, we have two annexures. One of the annexures is very important, which talks of various legal maxims, various legal maxims in the which are used in the law. And those legal maxims, you'll find that in various laws we find there are certain terms or certain expressions which are not defined. There would be terms like ab initio, void ab initio, prima facie. All these terms, you'll find that ad hoc or alias, these terms which are used in various judicial pronouncements and in the ultra vires, in the law itself, you won't find any meaning in any book. So this book also provides a meaning, a list of legal maxims which are generally used and generally referred to by the professionals and in the judicial forums. So this is how we have divided the book into nine chapters, and all the details regarding appeals have been discussed in very fine detail.
Were there any particular plot points to design the specific lesson or chapter?
What we have done is, there are two chapters which are the backbone of the book. One is one chapter on the first appeals and another chapter on the appellate tribunals. The explanation which has been provided, which I have tried to provide for the statutory provisions and for the rules, is that we have tried to break up that provision into various expressions. So, if you want to read a particular paragraph of the law, which is say, for example, of 10 lines or 10 sentences, we have broken up into two pages. We have broken that what are the exact requirements of that particular provision, and how do you understand it? You will understand it only when you break up that into smaller pieces. So that what gives you is, you're able to apprehend what is there in that provision, number one. Number two, what are the basic ingredients of that provision and what each word means. So this is how we have tried to make the law simple and try to make the reader understand what is expected from that particular provision. Apart from that, we have tried to design certain flowcharts. Certain flowcharts have been prepared, which provides you the guidance on how a particular event would move. And there are certain other tree diagrams and other diagrams by way of which we have tried to make the explanation simpler and easier for the reader.
Did you use any unique narrative techniques to enhance the learning skills of the readers?
As I told you, we have tried to make the book simple. The commentary is in the very simple language, and we have given bullet points for all difficult provisions, so that you are able to understand from that provision.
How does the structure of the book guide readers?
See, in each chapter, if you look at any chapter, the first 2 or 3 pages are the synopsis of the book, synopsis of that chapter. And in the main body of the chapter, we have not given the text. If the text of any notification or any circular or any clarification or any form is required, then we have given it as an annexure to that particular chapter. So what happens is, by doing this, the book seems to be a complete book because the reader need not go to any other place, any other website or any other act to find out that, okay, there is a mention of, say for example, form for filing the appeal. Where do I get the form of filing the appeal? The form for filing the appeal is also available in one of the annexures to that particular chapter. Similarly, if a reference is made to any notification, the text of that notification is also available at the end of that chapter. So you've tried to give the text of rules, text of provision, text of notifications, text of circulars, text of restrictions and orders, and text of all forms in the respective chapter itself. The main body of the chapter only contains the explanation and commentary duly backed by judicial pronouncement. And this is one book which provides lot of judicial pronouncement on the subject. And to balance that, there are cases which are against the appeal also, there are cases which are in favor of the appeal also. So being independent and without any bias, we have tried to cover all the cases which are in favor of the revenue and which are in favor of the taxpayer also. So this is what we have provided in the book.
That's lovely. I think it's a one-stop solution for people reading about appeals. What core message you hope readers will learn and apply from book?
See, as an author, I would say that any profession who is filing the appeal or who is into the profession of practicing on the tax law side, the reading is very important. You can't say that I have read the law once. You have to read it every day. People say that you have to learn first, then unlearn, and then relearn. So that principle has to be followed for any tax practitioner. And if you are into the business of filing of appeals and handling the appeals, the first advice I would like to give is that you have to be on your toes. So far as learning is concerned, learning in the sense that is there any amendment in the law, is there any amendment in the rules, whatever amendments are there, you should be aware of that, and you should also have the habit of reading the case laws which come on a daily basis. For that, you could subscribe to any tax law journal. You can subscribe to any tax law website which provides you with the daily updation on the case laws which are being decided in various courts of the country, including the Supreme Court. And once the tribunals are set up, then they will also start pronouncing the orders which are there from the GST Appellate Tribunal, and those will also be reported. So learning on that account is very important, because when you file the appeal and when you argue before the court, you have to know that can I take the support of any precedent which is binding on the court which is hearing the appeal. So if you are able to find a binding precedent, which you will know only when you are update on the case laws, then only you will be able to tell to the court, yes, this is the case which is similar to my case, and I would like to rely upon this case. If you don't know that, then in absence of the information which is not available with you, you are likely to lose the case, and the other party will be benefit. At times, your counterpart or the respondent, if you have filed the appeal, the respondent is quoting a case law. Now, how do you counter that case law? Case law is also very important. For that, again, you should know what were the facts of that particular case and how my case is different from that. You have to distinguish yourself. So, in the appeal, it's just like a war. You have to know about yourself, your strengths, and you have to also know about the weaknesses of the other party against which you are fighting the case. So knowing more about the other party is also equally important when you argue a particular case.
How do the themes in book relate to current trends in education and skill development?
As I told you, the profession of litigation It's purely based on education only. And this book adds to the education in the sense that this is a literature available on the subject of appeals in an organized manner. Unfortunately, we don't have reading literature in the field of GST, which is organized. You will find literature, as I told you earlier also, you will find some literature on the CBIC website, you will find literature on the some private websites, you will find some literature on GST Council's website, that there will be certain FAQs which are issued by CBIC, there will be certain FAQs which are issued by various commissionerates. So it is very difficult to understand. So here is a title which gives you all the information A to Z of appeals, particularly in GST. It doesn't talk of excise, it doesn't talk of customs, it doesn't talk of income tax, but so far as GST law is concerned, this is a book which is dedicated to how to handle appeals, how to file the appeals, how to handle the appeals, how to argue the appeal, and whatever is expected to be done by a professional or by a taxpayer so far as appeals are concerned. It will also guide you whether you should file the appeal or not. Because when you file the appeal, there are a lot of issues which you are confronted with. Whether it is an issue of classification, whether it is an issue of valuation, whether it is an issue of application of the correct rate, the classification code, all those things are important. So, for identifying what are my grounds of appeal. In fact, the book will also guide you on how do you prepare grounds for appeal. What should be the body of your document when you file the appeal? It should contain brief facts. It should contain the legal provisions. It should contain the grounds of appeal. What are the grounds on which you want to contest? Then how will you contest? Again, you have to look at your facts. You have to look at your narrative. You have to look at your the case laws which you want to rely upon. So it basically provides you a practical insight on how do you file a appeal and how do you handle an appeal for your clients. Or if you are working in a corporate, how can you help your corporate management to handle the appeal? They want to file any appeal before any forum.
What relevance do you think your book has in today's fast evolving world where learning process is very crucial?
See, the relevance of book is still there. It will always be there. And when you talk of learning, one may claim that the era of textbooks have gone. But so far as subject like GST is concerned, as I told you, the law itself is evolving. We are only 7 years old, and it has taken over the excise law, which was enacted in the year 1944, the service tax law, which was there in 1994, and various provisions, various laws or enactment which have got subsumed into the GST. They were 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. They are now into a new model called GST law, which is only 7 years old. So the law itself is evolving. The attitude of the officers is evolving. The behavior of the taxpayers is changing, because in the earlier days everything was, we had a system of issuing invoices and a system of not issuing the invoices also. But today everything has to be invoiced. Tax invoices have to be issued for every transaction. Everything has to be documented. And GST is a law which is fully automated. Everything is governed by a portal called GSTN, GST Network. And this is perhaps the only law where everything is done online. You have to register online, you have to pay your taxes online, you have to file your return online. Even the appeals are filed online. The only thing is that the hearing will take in a physical way. So the book's relevance will be there because the concept itself is new, the law is new, and we need books like this, not only this book, many other books to come, which will guide the taxpayer, which will guide the assessing officers, and which will guide the professionals in how to handle these cases. This is how the book's relevance will always be there.
So can you provide some examples of how individuals or organizations have used insights from your book to foster learning and development?
As I told you, The book provides you the practical inputs, and it is for the reader to use the book. And because if you don't know about appeal, you have to learn about appeals. This book will help. If you want to file the appeal, how do you file the appeal? Which form you should use? How it should be filled? Again, you come to this book. So books like this would always help you to ensure that whatever you are doing as a professional. So when filing of appeals is concerned, this book would be of help to you.
And how readers will measure their success in applying the skills taught in this book?
You see, this book doesn't provide you any skills. This book only provides you the tool. How you have to implement is basically your intellect, which has to come into play. This book will only provide you how to upscale your skills. You can upgrade your skills, your knowledge, but to apply that you have to use your mind. How smart you are, how sharp you are. You have to based on the facts of the case, you have to prepare grounds for appeal. This book doesn't provide you a ready-made grounds of appeal, because every case is different, every court is different. You have to use your own skills and application. You have to apply your mind to draft an appeal. Again, drafting is again an art. As I told you, there's a dedicated chapter on principles of interpretation. That chapter will be of great help when you draft the appeal. Because when you draft the appeal, you should know what are the principles of interpretation. And drafting the appeal and drafting and filing the appeal and arguing an appeal is nothing but a game of skill. Your argumentative skills have to be very good. Your presence of mind during that 10-15 minutes in the course of arguments when you stand before the members of the judges, that is important. So your presence of mind, you have to articulate your thoughts and what will you do in the next 10 minutes when you appear before them. It may take hours for preparing and filing of appeal. Then you have to study that appeal. It's not that filing an appeal is just a one-stop game. You have to, after you file the appeal, you have to find out how you will argue that appeal in the given time. It would be, maybe in some cases you get only 5 minutes, sometimes you get 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. How do you argue in that half an hour? How do you take advantage of that half an hour? In convincing the members, convincing the judges that this is how strong is your case. Just like writing exam, whatever knowledge you would have gathered in 300 hours or 3000 hours, you have to write in 3 hours only. So that is the crux of any appeal.
Thank you so much, sir. So this book consists of 9 chapters, which covers the entire gamut of GST law. And there has been voluminous litigation in GST in the last few years. So there has to be some organized literature. And I think this book will provide a complete guide to the readers, which is very easy to understand. Besides being strong on legal part, and as Sir said, it is supported by judicial pronouncements, including relevant notifications, circulars. It will be helpful for all the professionals and taxpayers, and I think it will be helpful for officers of the department also.
In fact, it could also be useful to the students who are writing the examination at an advanced stage, for example, CA final, or for example, NLU students who are who have opted for taxation as one of the major subjects.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope our readers will get guidance through this book.
Thanks, Neha, for this brief interaction with you. I would also like to thank Nahar Jito event organizers for providing us an opportunity for interacting with all of you. Thank you so much.